So, I, 34M, never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here we are. My wife, Lisa, 32F, and I have been married for 7 years. We had what I thought was a solid marriage. Nothing dramatic, no big fights, just a normal life. But I guess normal isn't enough for some people. Lisa started working at this marketing firm about a year ago. It was mostly remote, but they had these team-building nights once or twice a month. It started off innocent. A couple of drinks after work, laughing about office drama. She'd come home a little tipsy, tell me a funny story or two, and that was it. Then things changed. She started dressing up more. Nothing crazy at first, just putting in a little more effort. I even complimented her, saying she looked nice. She smiled and thanked me, but something about her reaction felt off, like she wasn't dressing up for me. The team-building nights became more frequent. Once a month turned into twice a month, then once a week. Then suddenly she was out every Friday. It's just a girl's thing, she'd say. Or, we're celebrating Sarah's promotion. There was always a reason. And yeah, I trusted her. She never gave me a reason not to. But then, one night, I woke up at 2 a.m. and she wasn't home. Lisa always came home after her nights out. She might stumble in a little drunk, laughing about how someone from work made a fool of themselves. But this time, nothing. No text. No call. Just an empty side of the bed. I tried calling. No answer. 15 minutes later, I got a text. Lisa. Sorry, babe. My phone died. Just crashed at Sarah's place. I'll be home in the morning. Love you. Something didn't sit right. I wanted to believe her. But that night, staring at the ceiling, I felt something I hadn't before. A gut feeling. The kind that tells you everything is about to change. And I was right. The next morning, Lisa came home around 10 a.m. She looked different. Not in a dramatic way, but off. Like she had barely slept. Like she had something to hide. She walked in, gave me a quick peck on the cheek, and went straight to the shower. No good morning, no small talk. Just straight to the bathroom. I sat there on the couch, staring at my phone, debating whether to push it or let it go. But something in me snapped. I needed answers. When she came out, towel wrapped around her, I asked, "So, how was Sarah's?" Lisa barely looked at me as she dried her hair. "Oh, just wine and girl talk. We crashed pretty late." I nodded, pretending to believe her. "What time did you get there?" She hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. Around 1:30, I think." She was lying. I knew it. Lisa was never unsure about details. She had an insane memory, always correcting me on things I forgot. But now she was guessing when she got there, so I pushed. Funny, because I texted Sarah earlier, just to check in. She said she hadn't seen you in a couple of weeks. Lisa froze, just for a second. Then she forced a laugh. "Oh, right, I didn't actually stay at Sarah's. We were with Sarah at the bar, and then I crashed at Jenny's place. My bad. I was half asleep when I texted you. 2 different stories in a matter of seconds. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. And that's when I saw it, the way she relaxed just a little, like she thought she had gotten away with it. Something was going on. I didn't know what, but I was done ignoring it. I decided then and there, I was going to find out the truth. I didn't say anything else that morning. I just watched Lisa move around the house like everything was fine, like she hadn't just lied to my face twice. But I wasn't stupid. I knew if I accused her outright, she'd just gaslight me, tell me I was overthinking, make me feel like I was the crazy one. So I played it cool. Later that night, while she was in the shower, I checked her phone. I know, invading privacy and all that. But trust had already been broken. And sure enough, she had deleted all her texts. Not a single message from that night. No chats with Sarah. No conversations with Jenny. Nothing. It was wiped clean. That's when my heart really started racing. Lisa never deleted messages. She was the type to keep every text, every note, every reminder. But now, suddenly, she had erased all evidence of the night before. I took a deep breath, locked her phone, and put it back exactly where I found it. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not until I had something solid. That's when an idea hit me. Lisa's car. She always drove to these girls' nights. If she really went to Jenny's place like she claimed, her GPS history would show it. So, the next morning, while she was getting ready for work, I went outside and got into her car. I pulled up the GPS history. My stomach dropped. There was no stop at Jenny's place. No stop anywhere near Sarah's. Instead, the last location before she came home? A bar across town. One I didn't recognize. And she had stayed there until 3:47 a.m. I stared at the screen, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Lisa had lied. Again. And now I had proof. I sat in Lisa's car for a long time, just staring at the GPS screen. 3:47 a.m. That wasn't just a few drinks with the girls. That was an entire night somewhere she didn't want me to know about. I could have called her out right then and there, but I held back. If she was lying this much already, she'd just twist the story again. I needed something she couldn't explain away, so I decided to set a trap. That night I acted normal. I even asked her about her next girls' night. She hesitated at first, probably wondering if she should even go after the last one. But eventually, she smiled and said, "Yeah, we might do something this Friday." Perfect. I played dumb. I joked around, gave her a kiss before bed, and pretended I didn't have a single doubt in my mind. But the second she fell asleep, I started preparing. I downloaded a tracking app on her phone. Nothing crazy, just a simple app that would let me check her location in real time. She'd never notice. And then, for the final touch, I reached out to Sarah. If Lisa was going to keep using her as an excuse, I needed to know exactly what was going on. Hey, just wanted to check. Lisa said you guys might be doing something Friday. You going? Sarah took a while to respond. When she did, it was a simple, "Sarah." "Oh, I don't think so. Haven't heard anything." There it was. Lisa was already lying about Friday, and it was only Tuesday. That was all I needed to know. I had my plan. Friday night, I wasn't just going to track her. I was going to follow her. Friday came faster than I expected. Lisa was in a great mood all day, humming to herself, texting someone nonstop. I knew it wasn't Sarah. By 7 p.m., she was dressed up, really dressed up. Tight dress, heels, perfume I hadn't smelled on her in months. She even wore lace underwear. I only knew because I caught a glimpse when she was getting ready. For a so-called girls' night? Yeah, right. She kissed me goodbye like nothing was wrong. "Don't wait up," she joked, grabbing her purse. I forced a smile. "Have fun." The second the door closed, I pulled out my phone. The tracker was working perfectly. I watched her little blue dot move away from the house. I grabbed my keys and followed. She didn't go to Sarah's. She didn't even go to the usual bar where she and her coworkers sometimes hung out. Nope. She drove across town to the same bar the GPS had shown last time. I parked a block away and waited. A few minutes later, I saw her get out of her car. She didn't even hesitate. She walked inside like she belonged there, like this was familiar. My stomach was in knots. I gave it 5 minutes before I got out of my car and followed her inside. The place was dimly lit, crowded but not packed. My eyes scanned the room fast, my heart pounding. And then I saw her. Lisa was at the bar, laughing, flipping her hair, sitting way too close to a guy I recognized. Jonathan, one of her younger co-workers. The one she always casually mentioned but never in a way that made me suspicious until now. Because right now, she was touching his arm, leaning into him, giving him the kind of smile she used to give me. I felt my whole body tense. This wasn't just a casual drink. This was something else. And I was about to find out just how far it would go. I stood there for a moment, watching. My pulse was pounding in my ears. Lisa was glowing, smiling, laughing, leaning into Jonathan like she was single, like I didn't exist. She touched his arm again. He whispered something in her ear, and she giggled. I hadn't heard her laugh like that in months. I clenched my fists. I wanted to storm over, flip the table, and call her out in front of everyone. But I stopped myself. I needed to see how far she was willing to go. I moved to the other side of the bar, keeping out of sight. Ordered a drink I had no intention of drinking. I pulled my phone out and started recording. If she was going to gaslight me later, I needed proof. A few minutes later, Jonathan placed his hand on her thigh. She didn't pull away. Instead, she nudged closer. Then, she leaned in and whispered something to him. Whatever it was made him grin like he just won the lottery. And then I saw it. Lisa's phone was on the table, face up. A text from me had popped up from earlier. Me, love you. Have fun tonight. She glanced at it, smirked, and flipped her phone over. Like she didn't care. Like I was an afterthought. That was it. I put my drink down, heart hammering, and walked toward them. I wasn't going to let her play me for a fool anymore. I walked toward them slowly, my hands balled into fists, my breath steady. Lisa had no idea I was there. She was too caught up in Jonathan, too lost in whatever little fantasy she was playing out. When I reached their table, I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, letting the moment stretch, letting her feel it. Lisa finally sensed something and turned her head. And when she saw me, her face drained of color. Jonathan, on the other hand, looked confused. He glanced between us, like his brain was still catching up, like he wasn't sure if I was just some guy or her husband. Lisa's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She was scrambling, trying to figure out how to spin this. I let her. I crossed my arms. Hey, babe. Girls' night. Huh. Her hands clenched into fists on her lap. I can explain. Jonathan, looking more uncomfortable by the second, leaned back in his seat. Dude, we were just... I cut him off with a sharp glare. Shut up. His mouth snapped shut. Then I turned back to Lisa. Go ahead. Explain. She hesitated. I saw her mind racing. She knew she was caught, but Lisa was a liar. A good one. I watched her take a deep breath, trying to look calm. It's not what it looks like, she said softly. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Because it looks like you're on a date with your coworker while I'm at home thinking you're out with Sarah. Lisa's eyes darted around, probably checking if anyone was watching. She let out a nervous laugh. Michael, come on. It's just drinks. Jonathan cleared his throat. Yeah, we were just... I turned to him, my voice dangerously low. I said, shut up. He shut up. Lisa sighed, rubbing her forehead. Look, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd overreact. There it was. The blame shift. The manipulation. I laughed. Actually laughed. Overreact? Lisa, I tracked your location because you've been lying to me for weeks. And guess what? Sarah had no idea you were even going out tonight. Her face twisted in anger. You tracked me? That's a huge violation of trust. I stared at her, stunned. Trust? Are you seriously talking to me about trust right now? She stood up, grabbing her purse like she was ready to leave. I don't have to deal with this right now. We can talk at home. I didn't let her move. No, we talk now. People were starting to notice. A couple at the next table glanced over. The bartender was pretending not to listen but was clearly interested. Lisa sighed, like she was the victim here. I'm going home. I looked at Jonathan, who was awkwardly sipping his drink, pretending not to exist. You coming with her? I asked him, my voice sharp. Jonathan almost choked on his beer. What? No. Dude. I didn't even know she was married. Lisa turned on him so fast, I almost laughed. Don't lie, Jonathan. You knew? So he did know. Jonathan looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. He muttered something under his breath and got up, walking away as fast as he could. Lisa turned back to me, her jaw tight. Congratulations. You embarrassed me. I scoffed. Embarrassed you? Lisa, you did that all on your own. She was breathing heavily now, her whole body tense. Nothing happened. Okay? Yes, I lied. But I just wanted to feel, I don't know, excited again. That one hit me like a punch to the gut. Excited? I repeated, my voice quieter. She swallowed hard, looking away. I love you, Michael. But things have been routine. I got caught up in stupid conversations at work. People talking about how a little flirting, a little fun, can make you feel alive again. I shook my head in disbelief. So what? You wanted to see how far you could go? Test the waters? See if cheating would make you feel alive? She didn't answer. And that silence said everything. I took a deep breath, stepping back. You know what? I'm done. Go home or don't. I don't care. Lisa's face twisted in panic. Michael. I turned and walked out. I didn't want to hear another word. I walked out of that bar feeling numb. My hands were shaking, my pulse hammering in my ears. I got into my car, gripped the steering wheel, and just sat there. Lisa had lied. Repeatedly. And not just little lies, big ones. Ones she carefully crafted, covering her tracks, erasing messages, flipping her phone over so she wouldn't have to see my texts. And that last thing she said, about wanting to feel excited again, that stuck with me. I started driving, but I wasn't sure where I was going. Home? A friend's place? A hotel? I didn't know. I just knew one thing. I couldn't look at her right now. By the time I pulled into a gas station to clear my head, my phone had already blown up with calls and texts. Lisa, 10:12 p.m. Michael, please come home so we can talk. Lisa, 10:25 p.m. I swear it wasn't what it looked like. I never cheated. Lisa, 10:40 p.m. Please don't ignore me. Just come home. Lisa, 11:05 p.m. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Please. I put my phone down without answering. I didn't trust myself to respond. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the parking lot, staring at nothing, while the events of the night replayed in my head. The way she smiled at Jonathan. The way she leaned in, whispered in his ear. The way she didn't flinch when he put his hand on her thigh. The way she flipped her phone over when she saw my name. A few minutes passed before I finally texted her back. Me. I'll be home when I'm ready. Nothing else. No, we need to talk. No reassurance. Nothing. Let her sit with that. It was nearly midnight when I finally walked through the front door. Lisa was sitting on the couch, knees pulled up to her chest, eyes red and swollen. She'd been crying. I didn't say anything, just took off my jacket and tossed my keys onto the table. Lisa stood up quickly. Michael. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Talk, but don't lie. She nodded, taking a deep breath. I messed up. I stayed silent, waiting. She wrung her hands together, looking at the floor. I swear to you, nothing happened. I never slept with him. I never even kissed him. It was just flirting. And I know that's bad enough, but I swear I never planned on actually doing anything. I let out a bitter laugh. Planned? Lisa, that's the problem. You didn't plan on cheating, but you sure as hell were walking toward it. She flinched but didn't argue. I shook my head. How long has this been going on? Her lip trembled. A couple of months. I clenched my jaw. That hurt more than I expected. So what? You just enjoyed the attention? Enjoyed lying to me? Lisa let out a choked sob. No. I love you, Michael. I got caught up in the excitement. I felt wanted. And I know that sounds awful, but it wasn't about him. It was about me. I stared at her. You didn't feel wanted? Lisa, I've been here this whole time. You think I haven't noticed the way you pulled away? The way you got more distant? You let me believe I was the problem while you were out with him. Her face crumpled. I didn't mean to. Yeah, I scoffed. You also didn't mean to get caught. Silence. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. I'll do anything to fix this. Please, Michael. Just tell me what to do. I sighed, running a hand over my face. I was too exhausted to fight anymore. You don't get to decide that, I muttered. I do. Then I walked past her and went straight to the bedroom, locking the door behind me. Lisa knocked softly. Michael? I didn't answer. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't want to be anywhere near her. And she knew it. I barely slept that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. Lisa's lies, her excuses, the way she didn't pull away from Jonathan. She said she wanted to feel wanted. Like I hadn't spent the past 7 years loving her. Like I wasn't enough. By the time the sun started creeping through the blinds, I had made up my mind. I couldn't just let this go. When I finally walked out of the bedroom, Lisa was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee in her hands. She looked like a wreck, eyes puffy, face pale. She shot up the second she saw me. "Michael," I held up a hand, cutting her off. "I don't want to hear another apology." Her mouth snapped shut. I sat down across from her, taking a deep breath. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady. "I'm taking some time to think, and I don't want you anywhere near me while I do." Lisa's hands tightened around the mug. "What does that mean?" "It means pack a bag. Go to your mom's. Go to a hotel. I don't care. But I don't want to see you here when I get back." Her eyes widened in panic. "Michael, please. This is our home." "Our home," I repeated bitterly. "Yeah, the one you had no problem sneaking around behind my back in." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. "Not anymore." She tried again. "Please don't do this. Let's talk. We can fix this." I shook my head. "You don't get to decide that." She was trembling now, her entire body shaking. "Michael, I love you." I scoffed. "You don't love me. You love the idea of me, the stability I give you. But if you really loved me, you wouldn't have done this." She started full-on crying. But I didn't stay to watch. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I didn't care where I was going. I just knew I needed to be anywhere but here. I drove aimlessly for an hour before my phone buzzed. It wasn't Lisa. It was Sarah. I frowned and answered. "Hello, Michael." She let out a slow breath. "I need to tell you something." I pulled into a parking lot, gripping the steering wheel. "What is it?" Sarah hesitated. Then she said the words that made my stomach drop. Lisa didn't just flirt with Jonathan. She was planning to sleep with him. My hands went ice cold. "What?" She told me a few weeks ago that she had been fantasizing about it. She said she wasn't sure if she'd actually go through with it. But, Michael, she wanted to. I felt like I was going to be sick. Sarah sighed. "I didn't say anything before because I didn't think she'd actually do it. But after last night, I couldn't keep quiet." I swallowed hard. "Did they ever?" "No. At least not yet. Yet." That word hit me harder than I expected. Because if I hadn't shown up at that bar, if I had trusted Lisa's lies for just a little longer, she would have. I gripped my phone tighter. "Thanks for telling me, Sarah." She hesitated. "I'm really sorry, Michael." I hung up without another word. Then I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Lisa had lied. Again. And now I was done. I sat in that parking lot for a long time, staring at nothing. My heart was pounding, my head spinning. Lisa hadn't just accidentally fallen into this. She had planned it. She had sat there in our home, in our bed, and thought about sleeping with another man. And she would have done it if I hadn't caught her first. That realization made my stomach turn. I wasn't just dealing with a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a stupid decision made in the heat of the moment. Lisa had been choosing this for weeks. And now, she was only sorry because she got caught. I took a shaky breath and pulled out my phone. My fingers hovered over Lisa's name. Then I made my decision. I wasn't going to play this game anymore. When I got home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Lisa's bags were by the door, and she was sitting on the couch, clutching a tissue in her hands. She looked up the second I walked in. "Michael, please." I held up a hand, my expression stone cold. Sarah told me everything. Lisa's breath caught. I watched the panic flood her face, the way her grip tightened around the tissue. What?" I tilted my head. "You were planning to sleep with him." Her whole body froze. I waited for her to deny it, to spin some kind of excuse. But she didn't. She just let out a small, shaky breath and started sobbing. "Michael, I don't know what's wrong with me." She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. "I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted this to happen." I clenched my jaw. But it did. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. I was confused. I got caught up in stupid thoughts and I let them spiral. I didn't think it would go this far. But I finished her sentence for her. But it was going to. Her silence said everything. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Unbelievable. Lisa stood up suddenly, desperation in her eyes. Michael, I love you. I swear, I love you. I met her gaze, my voice flat. No, Lisa. You don't. She flinched. I took a step back, my chest tight. You don't do this to someone you love. You don't lie for months. You don't fantasize about cheating. You don't sneak around, erase messages, gaslight your husband into thinking he's crazy. She was shaking now, tears streaming down her face. I made a mistake. I laughed again, this time sharp and cold. No, Lisa. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. This was a series of decisions. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. You know what hurts the most? I said quietly. It's not even the fact that you wanted to cheat. It's the fact that you looked me in the eyes every single day and lied. You let me believe everything was fine. You let me love you while you were out there chasing some thrill. Lisa let out a choked sob. Please, Michael, we can fix this. I'll do anything. I exhaled, steadying myself. Then I said the words I had been holding in since last night. No, we can't. Lisa's breath hitched. What? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep my voice firm. I'm done, Lisa. Her face collapsed. No, she whispered, stepping forward. But I stepped back. I shook my head. I can't be with someone who betrayed me like this. Lisa was full-on sobbing now, gripping the sides of her head like she was trying to wake up from a nightmare. Michael, please. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut Jonathan out of my life. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't. Don't throw this away. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to steady myself. And then I said the only thing that mattered. Lisa, you already did. Her knees buckled, and she dropped to the couch, burying her face in her hands. I turned away, grabbed my keys, and walked toward the door. Where are you going? She choked out between sobs. I didn't look back. I don't know, but not here. Then I walked out, shutting the door behind me. And this time, I wasn't coming back. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the house I had just walked out of. For 7 years, this place had been my home. Now, it felt like nothing but a pile of bricks and broken promises. My phone buzzed. Lisa, please, Michael. Just come back so we can talk. Lisa, I can't lose you like this. I locked my phone without answering. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I started the engine and drove. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. I drove for hours with no real destination. Just me, the road, and the mess Lisa had left behind. The streetlights blurred together, glowing streaks against the night. I barely noticed. My mind was stuck on one thing. How the hell did we get here? 7 years. 7 years of love, of memories, of building a life together. And now, it all felt like a lie. Lisa hadn't tripped and fallen into this. She hadn't made a single mistake. She had chosen this. Chosen to lie. Chosen to betray me. Chosen to risk everything for some cheap thrill. I pulled into an empty parking lot outside a motel and turned off the engine. The silence was suffocating. My phone sat in the cup holder, screen lit up with unread messages from Lisa. I picked it up, scrolling through them. Lisa, 1:12 a.m., I can't sleep. Please just tell me where you are. Lisa, 1:30 a.m., do you hate me? Lisa, 1:42 a.m., I know I don't deserve it, but I just want to know if you're safe. I clenched my jaw and set the phone down. Did I hate her? No. And maybe that was the worst part, because hate would have been easier. An unexpected visitor. I booked a room at the motel, too exhausted to keep driving. The second my head hit the pillow, my body wanted to shut down. But my mind wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa at that bar. Her smile. The way she leaned into Jonathan. The way she flipped her phone over when she saw my text. At some point, I must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, my phone was buzzing. I groggily checked the screen. 2:58 a.m. A call from Sarah. I hesitated, then answered. Hello, Michael. Sarah's voice was quiet, hesitant. I know it's late. I needed to check on you. I sighed, rubbing my face. I'm fine. A pause. Then, did Lisa tell you she's looking for you? I sat up. What? She called me an hour ago, freaking out. Said she doesn't know where you went. I let out a bitter laugh. Guess she's realizing actions have consequences. Sarah sighed. She's a mess, Michael. She should be, I muttered. There was another pause. Then Sarah's voice softened. You don't have to talk about it, but what are you going to do? I exhaled slowly. I don't know, but I know I can't go back. Not after this. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then, finally, she said, You deserve better than this. I didn't respond, 'cause deep down I knew she was right. I barely slept that night. Even after hanging up with Sarah, my mind wouldn't shut off. Everything felt unreal. Yesterday I had a wife, a home, a life I thought was stable. Now, I was sitting in a cheap motel room, staring at the ceiling, trying to process how the person I trusted the most had been lying to me for months. Morning came fast. Too fast. My phone was still lighting up with missed calls and texts from Lisa. I ignored them. Instead, I forced myself out of bed, splashed cold water on my face, and grabbed my keys. I wasn't going to hide out in a motel forever. I had a decision to make. Back home one last time. By noon, I pulled back into the driveway. Lisa's car was still there. I had hoped she would have left by now, that she'd given me space. But of course she didn't. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. Lisa was sitting at the kitchen table, clutching a coffee cup like it was the only thing holding her together. She looked awful, eyes swollen, face pale. The second she saw me, she shot up. Michael! I held up a hand. Sit. She hesitated, then obeyed. I didn't sit. I stayed standing, arms crossed, looking down at her. This marriage, I said. My voice even is over. Lisa's breath caught. No. Please, Michael, don't say that. I'm not saying it, I said. You did. The second you decided to sneak around, lie to me, and plan to cheat, you made this choice for both of us. She shook her head furiously, tears spilling down her cheeks. I swear, I would have stopped before anything happened. I just wanted to feel something. I was lost, but I never stopped loving you. I laughed, bitter and cold. Lisa, you didn't stop before anything happened. I stopped you. I caught you. If I hadn't, we both know where this was going. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She couldn't argue. I deserve better than this, I said quietly. And you? You need to figure out why you were willing to throw everything away for some cheap thrill. Lisa sobbed, gripping her hair. Michael, please. I'll do anything. I exhaled, stepping back. Then respect this. Leave. She didn't move at first. She just sat there, crying, looking at me like she was begging me to change my mind. But I didn't, because I wasn't the one who needed to change. She was, and I was done waiting for that to happen. Lisa sat there, frozen, her breathing ragged. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remembered. I remembered the way she smiled at Jonathan, the way she leaned into him, the way she flipped her phone over when she saw my message. She wasn't crying because she lost me. She was crying because she got caught. I forced myself to stay firm. Pack your things, Lisa. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. You're really doing this? I exhaled. You already did. Her lips trembled, but she stood up. Slowly. I'll go to my mom's, she mumbled. Just for a few days. Maybe when you've had time to think, we can... No, my voice was steady. There's no thinking. This is done. Her whole body tensed, but she nodded, swallowing back another sob. Then, without another word, she turned and headed to the bedroom to pack. I watched her go, feeling nothing. No sadness. No regret. Just relief. This wasn't my burden to carry anymore. Watching her leave. An hour later, Lisa stood at the door with her bags. She looked at me one last time. I know you don't believe me, she whispered. But I did love you, Michael. I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. You loved the comfort I gave you. But if you really loved me, we wouldn't be here right now. She flinched, but she didn't argue. For once, she had nothing left to say. She picked up her bags and walked out. I waited until I heard her car start. Then I let out a long, shaky breath. It was over. I should have felt broken, devastated. But as I stood in that empty house, I realized something. For the first time in months, I felt free. Lisa was gone. The house was quiet, too quiet. No sound of her humming in the kitchen. No scent of her perfume lingering in the hallway. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A few texts from friends, one from Sarah checking in. But not a single message from Lisa. She knew. She knew there was nothing left to say. The first steps forward. Over the next few days, I started putting the pieces of my life back together. I called a lawyer, got the paperwork started. Lisa didn't fight it. She didn't beg anymore. Maybe she finally understood there was no fixing this. I told my close friends. Some were shocked. Others, not so much. She was distant for a while, man, my buddy Greg admitted. We all saw it. Just didn't know how to bring it up. That stung. But I appreciated the honesty. I blocked Jonathan on everything. Not that I expected him to reach out. The coward had disappeared the moment things blew up. Lisa, she stayed at her mom's. I didn't check up on her, and I didn't want to. She made her choice. Now she had to live with it. Looking ahead. One night, about a week later, I stepped outside onto the porch with a beer in my hand. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't replaying the betrayal in my head. I wasn't wondering what if. I wasn't thinking about Lisa. I was just breathing. And in that moment I knew I was going to be okay. The pain? That would fade. The anger? That would pass. But me? I was moving forward. Without her. And honestly, that was the best damn decision I ever made.